Mr. Owen,
Yes.
pleasure talking to you on CGTN. But first of all, I'd like to know how you define the role and significance of socialism, especially in contemporary world.
The role of socialism provides us with an opportunity for a positive future, for a peaceful future, for a future that's sustainable, and provides us with the world the ability to continue. I mean, we're confronting a situation environmentally where in a country like Australia, we're very heavily impacted by storm events that are going well beyond historically the past. And also we're in a situation where no governments in Australia are able to really address the needs of the people, particularly around those sort of events. So there's many people that have lost homes in storm events, either by fire or by rain, and they still, years after those events, still don't have homes to move back into. So for a lot of people, particularly young people in the community, there's no real alternative that they can see to the current system, because every time issues arise, the current political leaderships work away from the interests of the public in general and young people in particular.
Environmental issue is just one of the dilemmas that we're now facing in the world.
Well, Australia is a big player in that. You know, the conservative politicians talk about the fact it's only a small country. It's one of the biggest continents in the world, but it's a small country. But that's because the population's small. But in terms of the impact, we're just as polluting, and we're just as bad when it comes to changing the environment in our country than the United States and many other Western countries. So even though our population's small, in relative terms, we have a big impact. But also, as a country that's based on resources, we've spent a lot of time doing a lot of damage to Australia. It's also a country that's very fragile because it's very arid. It's an ancient country. And so doing things without considering the environment can have major impacts. So we've got one of the biggest reef systems in the world. They say that you can see it from space. But one of the big problem with the barrier reef is that because of the effects of pollution coming off the shore and the warming of the seas, the reef is dying. So one of the biggest living entities in the world is dying because it's unable to adapt to the warming of the sea and the nutrients that come off the shore.
Well, indeed, we're facing a lot of common dilemmas, including the environmental issue. And as what you said, people keep discussing all those difficulties, all those issues, trying to find solutions, but the only thing they can do is to be angry. So we need a new solution. In one of your articles, you said that community with a shared future for all mankind is actually a new model for socialist diplomacy and a new model of thinking. So do you think this concept of a shared future can actually address those issues?
We just finished a session which I just finished speaking at. And one thing was that the cultural differences between regions within the world a good example of how cooperation is possible. So we were talking about the contradiction between the reality in the before the collapse of the Soviet Union and the current situation. So then we had, what was it, a bipolar world? But we also had the non-aligned movement, which maybe we haven't looked at the characteristics because the non-aligned movement is still about, but it represented a similar model to BRICS in that relations are based on respect, consultation and resolution of conflicts, so that the interests of all were served by good relations. So to me that was a good example, and in the current situation where the majority of nations don't want to have imposed on there the dictates of one system or one group of nations, especially the ones that used to be the colonial masters for a lot of those countries. But the problems of developing constructive administrations and systems in so many developing countries is still a big issue. So the question is not only nation by nation, but also state by state. So the model that's being developed, and it's a very important model, it's not a socialist model. It's a model of relations between nations that are not necessarily socialist, that develops important principles that socialists developed. And in reality, that has been a model that socialism has developed for many years. How else did the Soviet Union be created if it wasn't for Lenin's understanding of the need to respect all national divisions and cultural differences, because there wouldn't have been a Soviet Union if the Bolshevik Party wasn't able to work with all the nationalities across the Soviet Union to create a single state. You know, so it's an historical model, but in the current circumstances, it's a crucial model that has to be applied if we're going to have a future without war.
So it has to be shared future.
It has to be a shared future for peace and cooperation.
So you think that concept actually is able to address issues, no matter it's natural issues or geopolitical issues?
Of course, of course, because it's based on mutual respect. And the thing is, even conservative states like Saudi Arabia are willing to participate because there's a national interest. And they know that their national interest isn't served by being told what to do by the United States. It's served them for strategic reasons in the past, but for a future, they're determining that it's better that there be cooperation and peace rather than conflict, you know, and we all deserve a future, and a future where everybody is friendly in the world is a much better future for all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Irving.